Welcome everybody to the Detectorists on the Detectorists, and I'm here today with Ross Detectorosst. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks. All good.
Good.
Pleased to be here. Thank you.
So we are here again, Detectorists on Detectorists, and we are Series 2, Episode 5. So I'm very excited. And this is the first time I'm actually using the script from the iPlayer, well, not the iPlayer, but the BBC website, as directed by you and Ellie. And I have to say, it's brilliant to be able to go and get the scripts and read how it was written. And then obviously see the changes where they've either filmed a scene and not included it in an episode,
Yeah,
or
it's
they've
good.
made some adjustments to the little lines and stuff, and where they've tweaked it here and there.
Bits and brackets that they meant to say. When you said directed by you and Ellie, I thought it was a person called Ewan Ellie. And I thought, I don't know who that is. And I realised.
No, as directed by you both to where the scripts lived, and yeah, it's really cool actually. So very excited, and yes, it means I don't have to scribble so many notes because I've just been able to go through and highlight some bits and pieces actually on the script, which is fun. So the episode, as usual, starts on the lovely scene, and we're in the field, and Andy and Lance are detecting a few meters apart, and it's a blustery day. You can see they're struggling a wee bit, leaning into the wind. And then they suddenly look up. Andy specifically looks up and sees something coming in the distance, and with a rumbling sound, and he shouts out to Lance, "Oi, mate!" And then it cuts to a hilarious shot of a massive trampoline, you know, the type with the netting and everything, rolling down the hill in the wind.
It's a funny thing, isn't it? Just a random. I mean, it has nothing to do with the story. So it's written in for the sake of writing it in. And then Bishop comes down in his car and asks if there's a child in it, which is good news, and then says potentially, and that's also a weird thing. But I mean, I've seen lots of videos on YouTube of like where accidents happen, where kids get trampolines, actually not trampolines, but bouncy castles get sort of fly off into the sky, or hot air balloon just takes off wrong and drags someone through the air and stuff. So I don't know if the child reference was to do with the fact that sort of thing happens, or just
it just happens or not.
Dark joke or whatever.
And who would the random child be? But yeah, that must have been fun. I bet they had a few goes at setting up that shot. Hey, having it just sort of
That's the
roll
other
on
thing.
past them.
Yeah, set that up.
It's not like a radio-controlled massive trampoline. We had that once here, actually, one of the storms many years ago, and there was literally a trampoline suddenly in our garden. That was fun. It was on the old group WhatsApp. Who's lost a trampoline?
And I wonder if they had a stunt double for both of them,
just in case.
Just in case it veered off slightly down the hill.
Yeah, no, it looks a lot of fun anyway. So yeah, Bishop whizzes off, and we cut then, don't we? We have the familiar sound of the Detectorist theme tune, and we come back in after zooming past the treasure we know is in the ground, and Andy and Lance are having a bit of a lunch break. They're sort of sat in sort of the tractor marks of a field this time, not on a tree or under a tree, and having a bit of chat, eating sandwiches, drinking some tea. And they're talking about Kate and the fact that she needs space, because we saw in the last episode, obviously she had a bit of a freak out, didn't she, after she went around to Lance's place and he sort of got out all of the bundles of presents and started laying it on thick.
Yeah, that was quite intense.
It was, yeah, absolutely. And obviously he's been waiting for that moment all his life, and she'd obviously only found out about him recently. So yeah, it's the two sides of the coin. And Andy's having a bit of a jokey go at Lance, isn't he? He's saying, "You said to me that you said you've got to give her space," and Lance is like, "I know." And Andy said, "You said you'd like to Kate to call you dad, but it was too early, and you were going to give her space." Lance is like, "I know." It's sort of the one time the tables have turned, isn't it? And instead of Lance having to go at Andy, Andy's being able to like have a bit of a go at Lance.
Yeah, just a little bit of revenge on him. 45 birthday gifts. I'd love that. I'd love to have.
You know what? All the retro stuff as well, wouldn't it? It'll be all this sort of 90s and stuff. And
I don't know if I'd want. I wouldn't care too much for years 1 to 9, 10, but then getting the stuff from 10 years old upwards would be. Yeah. I know they'd be worth a lot on eBay. Firstly, So yeah, I'd think that'd be an amazing day.
Yep, same. I thought the same thing. So yeah, anyway, she's gone off and Andy's like, wow, I'm surprised that she didn't call the police. And Lance is just like, I got overexcited. So yeah, there's a bit here, and I've noticed like in the scripts, it's you do really have to take note because there's some bits here already that they've cut out of the original speech, but they continue to talk about Lance and his relationship with Kate. And then he's saying that she's not answering any of his calls, and Andy's like, "Don't worry, she'll be back." And Lance says he really hopes so. Bit of a pause, and then a very quick 180 on the subject. Goes to Andy and his job, right?
It does, yeah. I like just before that.
Mm.
One thing I haven't got yet, which I need to get, is he's got a folded seat pad that he took around and I think it was Lance unfolded a seat pad and put that down to have their lunch.
Ah.
And I went out on my permission the other day and I used a bag for life, and it was not the same. And also knee pads. I don't have knee pads, and I think I need some just to stop the wet getting into the knees when I'm
Yeah, good
on a
shout.
field.
Mm.
So that episode reminded me I need to buy some of those.
Very good shout. I have knelt on a pointy bit of flint before, and it's very painful when you do that square on your knee pad. Knee pad, knee cap. That's why you
Yeah,
need a knee pad. But I'm the same. I've actually got a bag for life, and I sit on that. I know what you mean. It's not the same, is it? Good shout. Top tip. So Andy says to Lance, "Yeah, I got the job." He just very casually drops it in, doesn't he? Got the job. Lance is like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Yep." I think it's because I mentioned crack dust and the Botswanian death metal scene. So Lance takes the credit for that, and he asks him if he's
yeah.
going to take it. And Andy's sort of thinking about life, and he's like, don't know. And then Lance twigs it immediately. Andy's up to his old tricks, and he goes, "You haven't told Becky yet, have you?" He sort of like understands Andy's body language straight away.
Mm.
And he's asking him what the problem is, and Andy's really open here, isn't he? He just goes, "Oh, I'm so scared." He opens up about it, just saying, he's petrified of what?" And Lance asks, and Andy's like, "Well, I've taken my family out to the middle of nowhere to a malaria zone, for Christ's sakes, and I'm not knowing what the flip I'm doing once I'm out there." So he's just very honest about what he's scared
Yeah,
of.
they are very good friends in that way. I noted here how supportive Lance is in most cases. I can't remember. There was a former episode. I can't remember which bit it was, but there isn't any kind of. He doesn't feel snubbed by Andy at any point. So if you're talking to your best mate about one of them going to a different country, there's going to be a certain element of possessiveness or jealousy or feeling second best to his wife or girlfriend,
Mm.
and and so you could be thinking about yourself, or Lance could be in this case thinking about himself
Mm-hmm.
and trying to discourage his mate from going because he knows he'll be on his own if he does.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. He talks to him in a very as a mate should, and sort of talk about you'll regret this if you don't take the opportunity.
Mm.
And more than discourage it, he's actually encouraging him to think about how good it might be. So I
Yeah.
thought that was really supportive of him.
Yeah, that's what you want in a mate as well, don't you? You don't want anyone to sort of
Yeah, it
clip
is.
your
Yeah.
wings. Mm.
Although I'd also like him to beg me to stay as well. I'd like him to know.
Exactly. You want to feel loved and treasured,
I'm pretty
but
sure they would
also
be begging as well.
oh dear. So yeah, he's revealed that he's scared, and then Lance is telling him sometimes in life we have to step off cliffs, and because of his newfound lease on life, Lance himself, with discovering his daughter Kate, he starts spouting the wisdom, doesn't he? And
Mm.
Andy sort of claps back a bit, saying, "Yeah, well, I've heard all that before." That says where, and he says on Oprah Winfrey. So back off. I'm fed up with people trying to push me in directions I don't want to go. So yeah, you can see that the pressure's building with Andy, isn't it? And he's trying to make up his own mind. And what time he's going to do that, what his timeline is, who knows? And then
Mm.
Lance says, when have you got to let them know by? And Andy's like, end of the week, I think, says it in the letter. And he goes to check his back pocket for said letter, and it's not there. And he checks the other side, and he's, oh, bollocks. What? not there. Must have fallen out. So he reckons he's lost it now. Oh, well, there you go, Andy says it's a sign. So he's taking that whole thing that he's lost the letter. It's probably the easier way to be like, it's a sign. We don't need to deal with it now.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit like Andy, not just in the looks, the kind of thinness and beard, but in so much as making these kinds of attempts on making a decision about something that's going to hugely impact your future and current life with a partner, maybe where you don't feel you want to do it. And I used to live in London and moved to Southampton for uni. That's like the biggest move I've made. And I have flirted with the idea of moving to another country in the past, but and I think I mentioned that to my ex before, and that planted a seed about a plan to do that I didn't really want to grow. Even though the idea was nice. So the idea is nice, but then I would miss Match of the Day and Saturday Kitchen and programs like that. So
all the British
actually
stuff.
following through with moving to another country is a
Yeah.
different matter to just thinking it might be nice to do it.
Yeah.
So I think having these kind of ideas, and it was, to be fair, it's not even his idea, it's Becky's idea. She's the one driving that.
Yeah.
But by not saying, no, I definitely don't want to do this, he's allowing her that space to dream that it might happen. And then it gets too big for him. And then it's bury your head in the sand and change subject and focus on anything else to avoid making the decision or having a chat about it. So I can kind of see his point of view here. Quite difficult.
Yeah.
I think.
Very difficult, and good point. Becky's allowed to dream, and it's growing and growing and growing in her mind, and he's not even entertaining it in his mind, is he?
Exactly. But he's not stopping it, so she's just on a runaway train.
Exactly. We know Becky likes to plan. So she's well away. So yeah, Lance puts him in his place and says, there's no such thing as signs. And then Andy says, there are when you want there to be. So that's the full stop on that conversation. And then we clip over to Andy and Becky's house, and Becky is there getting ready to leave the house with baby Stan, and she sees the letter on the floor. It must have fallen out of Andy's pocket as he was leaving the house. So, of course, she picks it up and reads it. She doesn't know what it is. She opens it up and reads it. And then, of course, you can tell by her face she's read it and sees, he's got the job, and he's not shared that with her. Why doesn't he share these things with her? I do not know.
She shouldn't be reading his private letters either, though, to be fair.
Well, to be fair, did she know it was his private letter? It was just a crumpled bit of paper on the floor.
It weren't her letter. It was in an envelope.
I don't know. I can't remember now, actually. I'm going to have to go back and check. Oh, dear. Okay, so then we're back to a different scene, and it's Sophie. She's sat on a bench. She's looking a bit cross, and she's on the phone, isn't she? She's trying to get hold of Peter, and it looks like finally he's answered. And she's asking him, what's going on? Why haven't you been answering your phone? So, of course, we know that Peter is a bit of a wrong 'un now, and he's up to no good. And Peter is in his camper van, and he's telling him he's had enough. He's packing up. He's getting out of there. Terry and the others have turned his mission into some stupid conspiracy, and it's spoilt it for him. I'm going home. Because, of course, last time we saw that they were saying, accusing him of knowing that his grandfather hadn't passed in the plane crash, and he was upset and saying, well, it's not good for me because he survived and didn't come back to his family. So Sophie's like, what? That's it? You're just going? And Peter's like, look, it's not your fault, but the whole thing has turned it sour for me, and they can have their rally, dig it all up. It's nothing to do with me anymore. I'm sorry. And then he says, it was nice to meet you.
I know. Do you think she feels here properly that she's been used at this point?
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously, from she's very hurt. He's very cold. But sort of the penny dropping more and more.
That was weird. It went down for a minute then. You're back again.
Yeah, something just flashed up then saying about streaming. Anyway, I certainly think the penny's dropping more and more that she's been used and manipulated just to get what he wants.
Yeah.
And I think she's realizing it, still not wanting to accept it, but doing it with kind of false good grace. I think.
Yes. Yeah. She's trying to still see the good in him, isn't she?
Yeah.
Even though he promised that they could go and do traveling and all that kind of stuff together, he's now saying he's off. And it was nice to meet you, which is pretty much a you're not invited. So yeah, she's a bit stunned, a bit upset, and she says, "Yeah, you too," and she hangs up. And you can see that she's not happy at this point. She's a bit peeved. Back to Peter, he hangs up from her, looks in the distance, and then dials another number. And you can't tell what's being said on the other side, but he's saying, "Where are you? There's a change of plan. It needs to be tonight, soon as you can." And then he hangs up. So we know that Peter needs to be doing something tonight. I wonder what that could be.
Quite cloak and dagger, isn't it?
Very, yes, dodgy Peter. We now go to the pub, and the boys are having a pint, Lance and Andy, and you're not quite sure what's happening at the minute because the camera's pointing out of something. But as soon as Lance starts to speak, you understand that they're on the quiz machine, the good old quiz machine in the pub. And Lance is shouting out questions towards Andy, saying, "Capital of Mongolia, Ulaanbaatar." Lance hits the right button. And then he says, "Oh, I knew that." And then he says, "Largest carnivore." And he says, "Blue whale, land carnivore, Bengal tiger." And then Lance hits the button and it's a big and it was a polar bear. You never get far on those quiz machines. So it surprises them both that it's a polar bear, but they just take their drinks and their crisps and they go over to have a sit. And then the barman comes over. So it's the second time we've really seen the barman speak in the seasons. And he says, "Here, are you going to be seeing your mate, the foreign bloke?"
I know. Quite a funny word to use. Foreign. I don't just.
Yeah.
I know Detective is a few years old, even by this series, but it just seemed like quite an
Yeah.
old word to use. Foreign,
Yeah.
but equally, I suppose it paints village life, and there are people who use those words still. I know my
Yeah.
mum still does.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. I know what you mean. So Andy sort of points him in the right direction of what the guy means, and that's Peter, German. He questions the barman. The barman says, "Yeah," and he's like, "Not sure, maybe." And the barman's got a wallet in his hand, and he says, "Oh, he left this here." So Andy's like, "Oh, right, yeah, I can give it to him. When was he in?" And then the barman confirms that he was in there earlier with two others. Who could this be? These two other people. And he says, "Was Sophie with him?" And the barman says, "No, it was two blokes, the one with the hair and the short one." So now we're like, "Oh, we know who that is." Lance says, "Simon and Garfunkel. Did they have their metal detectors with them?" And the barman confirms, "Yeah, they did." So he goes off, and then this is a really interesting how this plays out, isn't it? I paid much attention to the detail in this next section.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Lance pounces on the wallet because he doesn't mind living dangerously, and he wants to go through it because obviously they've got the suspicions about Peter. Andy's protesting, saying you can't do that, and Lance is like, "No, shut up, I'm doing it." And then Andy's interested. What's in there? And Lance asks, "What was his grandfather's name?" Andy confirms it was Schneider, but Lance shows Andy his driving license and it's Peter Baumann. So instantly there's a bit of a disjoint with the name, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So,
quite an assumption, though, even in this day and age. Certainly in this day and age, to just say, right, well, his name was this, and he said his grandfather was this,
mhm.
and therefore that must be. And I know Andy sort of says, that doesn't mean anything necessarily, but it's still quite an odd thing to assume. Like
Yes,
now, everyone's got different surnames and
exactly.
doctor's names and things, but
And if you
still,
look at
we
if
know
you look
he's bad.
no, if you look at the detail as well, wasn't his uh, grandmother pregnant with his father, Peter's father? So if they thought he died, she would have presumably maybe remarried. So he might have taken the other name, right? Yes.
Yeah.
So they go down that route, and Lance is saying, "Mate, it's not looking good. He's after something else." And then Andy says, "All that stuff about Road Gold is just internet rubbish, isn't it? It's just urban myth." And then he stops short because when Lance tips up the wallet, something else falls out, doesn't it? and it's a gold coin. You instantly see it's a gold coin, and it's
Perfect condition.
spinning. Yeah, absolutely gleaming, spinning. You don't see it up close, but you can see it's a very nice shiny gold coin. And Lance immediately pulls back and slaps a beer mat down on it because he's seen something. And it's that way he kind of does peekaboo with the beer mat, isn't it? And he's like, what was that? Lance is like, gold coin. And then he says, it's German. It's got an eagle on it. And he's like, oh, is the eagle holding anything? So we know what's happening. Lance peeks again and nods. And he's like, yep, it's holding a wreath. So we all know what's coming next. So he peeks again. And Lance isn't touching the coin, looking at it. And I think Andy asked him if it's got a symbol on the wreath. So we know what it is, don't we? There's the symbol been seen. Dare we speak the name? Let's keep it like Detectorists and we won't say the name of what's been seen. But there's a very famous symbol from a certain world war, previously, obviously, in Greek symbolism, that meant a very different thing.
It came up on that. What was the scandalous piece of find the other day? The horse. That horse got found with that symbol on its rump.
Yes, it had to be explained.
Is it real?
Yeah.
Isn't it real? Chatting on it. Yeah, this is the second time that that there's been some snooping. You had Becky looking through Lance's and his private letter.
Yeah.
Now they're looking through a private wallet.
Yeah.
This episode needs to be sort of given a tagline.
People need to be reminded of their manners. But anyway, Lance doesn't want to touch it. He knows it's basically a Nazi gold coin, and there's obviously a swastika on it, which is why he doesn't want to touch it. And it's the way he sort of is recoiling, isn't it? Like it was a piece of dog muck or something, and he's just trying to scoop it with the beer mat back into the wallet. He doesn't want anything to do with it. And so they know that they've got to do something. We need to speak to Terry. Lance says we need an emergency meeting. So they get up and they ditch their pints, which is a massive thing, isn't it? Anybody ditching their pints, but it's that urgent. They leave the pints at the bar and they tell the barman they've got to go, and they put the wallet on the bar and tell him, second thoughts, Mike, we'll leave it here in case he comes back for it, because they don't want, obviously, Peter to know that they've maybe been through his wallet. And off they dash.
That coin is mentioned in, I think it's the Detectorists Facebook group. It's mentioned or referred to as the bad coin, and I remember seeing, must have been one of the admins posted a post in there saying that, like, don't post a picture of that coin. Not obviously the one because you don't see it, but don't find one online that you know to be the same type of coin, and post that in here, referring to the Detectorists, because Facebook will pick up the symbol and maybe ban the group, or you'll get reports and stuff by people who aren't seeing it. So yeah, they actually had to go to measures to stop that coin from being shared in the chat.
Yeah. The AI does a very good job, but then it also will just randomly like ban someone because they put up a picture of their dog, and the AI has come across and gone, "Oh, you're not allowed to do this." But yeah, it's a bit Voldemorty, isn't it? And we'll see that later on in the episode. We do not say certain words in Terry's house, as we know, or in Sheila's presence, and that's where we are now. That was a good segue. So we're at Terry and Sheila's house, and the boys have rung on the doorbell, and Terry opens the front door, and he's all dressed up. He's wearing a short sleeves tie, waistcoat, flat cap, and spats. What are spats? A spat's a type of shoe or a type of trouser. Not sure.
I have a feeling it's shoes. There was a program called Spats when we were kids. It was a burger bar where everyone wore a pink and white uniform.
Oh.
Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember.
On YouTube afterwards, there's you'll be able to find the Spats theme tune, and it was just a burger bar with a manager who was a bit mean. I can't remember the stories.
Sorry for me to research.
Have a look at Spats on YouTube afterwards. You remember the theme tune, if not the program.
Yeah, I probably will. It will remind me. So it's all very much business at the front door, I noted. It's all very serious. And Terry's like, Lance, Andy. And then Lance is like, Terence. And Terry says, come through to the operations room. And they pop on through. And then you see when they make their way into the lounge that already gathered in the lounge are Hugh, Russell standing a bit awkwardly beside Louise and Barda. And then Lance goes on to tell everybody what they've found out. So this is good. The gang have united, haven't they? And they've got a mission. They had their suspicions, but Lance and Andy start telling the story. And just before they kick off, Sheila enters, and she's got an amazing rockabilly swing dress on. It's a blue dress with polka dots, and she looks all dressed up, ready to go, doesn't she? Queen Sheila. And she's very excited. So everyone goes, Sheila. And she's like, oh, I wish you all, I'd known you were all coming. I would have laid on a buffet, because she's the hostess with the mostess. And then, of course, she asked the famous question, who'd like some lemonade? And everybody knowing they've got to.
Even Terry.
Yes, absolutely. It's like, oh, yes, please. They all know, yes, please. And it makes her day, doesn't it? She's pleased as punch. She rushes out the room to go and get them all some lemonade. So she scurries off. So Terry asks, what's it all about? And then Andy says, we don't think Peter's telling the truth. We don't think his grandfather was on that plane. And he was seen drinking with the dirt sharks. So this is big, isn't it? That he's been seen by an independent witness, the barman, drinking with the dirt sharks. So Terry's like, I knew it. And then Russell, very quip, is like, sneaky bastard. I do love it when Russell speaks. Whatever he says, it's very good. And then Lance says, we've seen something that might back up Varda's buried gold theory. And this is where Louise asks them what he's seen. And this is where they says, well, it's a large gold coin that fell out of Peter's wallet. Terry inquires what type of gold coin, because it could be something like a hammered angel or something like that. And this is where Lance says a bad gold coin. So this is where it's referred to, as you said earlier. Yeah. Terry's like, no. Lance is like, afraid so. And then Russell goes, you mean and then that's the point that Terry says, no, not in this house. Thank you, Russell. So they reveal what they know. They think that they're going to hit the site, and they think it's going to be tonight. And then Hugh is the one that says, first of all, we need to protect it. We've got to try and scupper their plans to go and nick whatever's in that air crash site. So that's when they all decide that they're going to have a stakeout. Terry likes that plan, being an ex-copper as well. He wants to have a stakeout, but he says he's already got prior commitments. And he says, we've got to go to the Lindy Hop. And Louise says, can't you forego the Lindy Hop? Terry's like, Sheila's been looking forward to the Lindy Hop. And Lance says, is dancing more important than detecting? He says, no, but Sheila is. And I love that. That's the cutest thing. I put on my notes, with lots and lots of W's, because I just love how much they love each other.
Yeah.
And it's at this point she enters the room with her big tray of lemonade, and Terry's asking who's up for an all-nighter. They each take a glass and they each cheer after Terry says, to the DMDC, and they all toast to that, which is lovely. And then they all go to take a bit of a sip, but the doorbell rings, and then Sheila dashes off to go and get whoever's at the door.
What I liked about that lemonade thing is obviously Lance and Andy had lemonade previously, and it soured their face right up.
Mm-hmm.
And no one said yes to lemonade until Andy and Lance said, "Oh yes, we'll have some." So they deliberately set them up, the others, and I liked it. It was so blatant that was what they did. And then all three of them, Terry, Lance, and Andy, didn't take a sip, while everyone else had to suffer.
Yeah,
even Terry, as much as you say, he loves Sheila, decided not to drink the lemonade and watch everyone else. Also, did you notice that before Sheila opened the door, before she said, "I'll get it," she said, "I'll get it," and then the doorbell rang.
Yes.
So she psychically.
Oh, I didn't spot that. So she did a
she said, "I'll get it," and then the doorbell went, and then off she went.
Brilliant. No, I hadn't spotted that.
She's done that before as well. I can't remember when.
She did. It was when the boys went round and Terry was reorganising his finds and stuff. But she's in the hallway.
First time. She said one tall, one skinny.
That's it.
One short, one skinny, or whatever. And then they came to the door.
Yeah.
And yeah, she did it here as well.
Yes. Oh, well spotted. No, I hadn't spotted that at all. So she's definitely psychic, our Sheila, isn't she? She knows stuff, that's for sure. So she goes to the door and there's a ruffled Sophie there. So Sheila's like, oh, hello, Sophie. And Sophie's after them all, isn't she? She's cross. So she's asking if they're there. And she's like, yes, go through. Do you want some lemonade? And Sophie's just a bit blunt. No, thank you. Because she doesn't want any of Sheila's lemonade, which is rude. And it's great because they go into the lounge and you see, like you say, you see Louise and Hugh and Russell, and they're all like holding their sinuses and everything because they've had some of the really sour lemonade, and it's just really funny to see them suffering. And Terry proclaims, Sophie, there you are. And she's so angry and cross, isn't she? And she sort of goes off on a spiel talking about what have you done? Terry's like, what have we done? And she's just saying, you know, she's just spoken to Peter. He's packing up and going. You've driven him away. And they're trying to explain. And he's saying, no, Sophie. And she needs to get it out, doesn't she? Because she's cross because Peter's leaving and she's feeling used and she's taking it out on her friends. So she's saying he came to us with wanting help for a personal, emotional journey, she says, and you've just made it into a farce. So yeah, she shouts at them all a bit and they're trying to explain he's lying. She's not listening to it at all. And then she storms off out. And then Andy, bless him, goes out to try to catch up with her and let her know that she's, you know, being taken for a fool. So he explains to her outside after she's now left, after shouting at everyone that he's a Nighthawk. And she's like, no, you're wrong, and I'm going to prove it. And I've put here love blind and underlined it. She just can't accept it, can she?
No, and even though she probably deep down knows it, but just is, I mean, we know from the next scene that she kind of knows it, but she doesn't want to admit it to herself, I think. And
No.
and probably embarrassing to be pointed out by other people.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of
If you
other
like
people as
someone,
well.
if you like someone and people see through them, and
Mm.
you are a bit love blind, and they point out that someone's taking you for a ride or not nice or not who they say they are, it's a bit embarrassing, and you kind of think you know the person better than they do, so you want to trust your own instincts, I suppose. So I guess it's just embarrassed at it as much as anything.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't usually have like a whole metal detecting club seeing your love life crash and burn, do you, when these things happen? No, it's
Not
got to be.
typically.
Not typically. So yeah, she storms off and then we cut and it's evening and Peter's camper van is there and there's a little fire going. And he's obviously at his camper van and he's grabbing some stuff out of the van, and when he turns around there's Sophie and she's looking at him and he's got his detector in his hands and she's saying, well, what's going on? And Peter's again being liberal with the truth, and he's saying, I've decided to go out there before Terry and the rest go digging it up. And she's querying with him, what's up there? And he's saying, you know what's up there? I told you, my grandfather's place. So he's still just trying to say he wants to see evidence of the plane crash up there. And she's like, well, why is that so important now when you know he wasn't on it when it went down? He says he feels he had a connection to it. And she's still trying to dig deep and find out the truth, isn't she? And he's almost got her on his side and his way of thinking, and he's saying, you know, it's not the fact. I just want to find out and have that connection with my grandfather. And she's pointing out that she wanted to spend the summer with him, and he's like, well, we still can. I'm sorry, I was just angry. I don't have to go home. We'll leave in the morning. Just let me do this tonight. So he's trying to get rid of her now, isn't he? It's like, yeah.
Yeah, further.
Oh dear. And then she offers to help, and again he says, "No, thank you. I want to be alone for this." So she's seeing it happening in front of herself. She's still not sure, and then it's cemented because around the corner you see Simon and Garfunkel coming in view in full Nighthawking gear. It says in the script, and Art is talking about not being able to get your van up that track, so we'll have to take the stuff up by foot. And then, of course, he stops because he sees Sophie's there, and she looks at Peter, and then that's the point, isn't it, where she realizes, yeah, absolutely, he is a wrong, and she looks really annoyed. I'm surprised she didn't punch him at that point, actually, but I can imagine she wanted to.
Yeah, I found an iron bar the other day that was really weighty
Mm.
and circular, cylindrical, and I was using it to flatten my holes in afterwards. I
Oh
mean, really came
wow.
out with a whack. And yeah, there are some things you can find when metal detecting, that you could be quite violent with.
Yeah, they can come in
Lucky.
useful. Oh gosh. So we cut and we're in Lance's flat and Lance is getting together his stakeout gear. So he's got the binoculars, night vision, thermos, walkie-talkie. He's got all the stuff, hasn't he? He's got all the gadgets, all the great bits and pieces that you might need in case of a stakeout. And then he's sort of reminded by Kate because he sees the unopened birthday presents, and then he whips out his phone again and starts sort of talking out the window. I like the way he talks out the window every time he's leaving a message for somebody. And he's leaving yet another message, and he instructs her to ignore the other 7. So he's having his 8th turn at trying to get a really good voicemail in and make her come back.
Yeah, this is. I know in Frasier, certainly there's a particular episode where Frasier's got a girlfriend, and he messes up in front of her, or messes up in some way with her,
Mm.
and then he starts phoning and leaving messages. But I'm not sure if it's that or another comedy where someone actually buys an answer machine to send to them, and it's already preloaded with loads of voicemails as well. But this idea of leaving voicemail after voicemail and apologising for the last voicemail you sent and things like that,
Yeah.
it's
Oh
kind of played
god.
out here.
You just die inside. Sometimes I've done that before. I don't know. I suppose when I was younger, when I used to leave an answer phone message, you're almost nervous leaving the message, aren't you? Especially back in the day, because you only had a set amount of time. So you wouldn't be rambling on and then get cut off like mid sentence. And then you would have to phone back and leave more of a message.
I mean, in Peep Show, there's the first episode of Peep Show. Mark leaves a message for Sophie, where he ends up singing. I can't remember the name of the song, and then I go and spoil it all by saying something stupid like "I like
That's
you,"
right. Yeah.
and then he has to apologise for the voicemail when he's at work the next day because the voicemail was just horrific. So,
And it's there to be kept if that person wanted to keep it as well. Madness. Madness. Anyway, he signs off. He's trying to say, just text me your address if it's easier and I can send you that money because he really wants to have the money. And then we sort of cut to the stakeout. Now, in the script, this is a really big part where they've changed the order of what's actually ended up on screen compared to the script. So I'll try and get this right. But at first, you see Louise and Varda in the car. And it's quite funny because they've obviously had a bit of a tiff or something. And Louise is saying, "Why the silent treatment, Vard?" Or V, she calls her. And of course, she
yeah,
never says much, does she? So that's quite funny. And then we see Hugh and Russell are chatting, and Russell is again asking him if he should ring Hugh's parents, obviously to let him know he's out for the night.
I thought it was so funny. No, it's okay.
He's like, "No, why?" And then you get Lance and Andy, and they're talking about stakeouts, and Andy's like, "It's funny. I never thought end up on a stakeout." And Lance tells him this is his 3rd stakeout, and he goes through the history of the stakeouts he's had previously, which was quite funny. Do you remember what the previous stakeouts were? One was protecting a giant vegetable the night before an important horticultural show.
Yeah, that's an odd one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a strange one. So Andy's like, "Is that pumpkin?" And he's like, "No, it's a marrow, and I didn't grow it." So that was a weird one. And then an ex-girlfriend as well. And Andy's a bit concerned at this. And he goes, "Oh, that's stalking, Lance."
That's taken.
And he said, "Well, not really. It would have become stalking if I'd done it loads." And he says, "Well, how many times did you did it?" And she's like, 3 or 4. Just wanting to
Yeah,
see what she was up to. So yeah,
qualifies.
definitely stalking. And now it's here, obviously. So yes, Terry, at this point, you see him sort of coming out of the dance hall, and he's got his walkie-talkie at the ready. And as he comes out, you see behind him, you see an amazing Spitfire or something airplane there. Looks really cool. So they obviously had to wheel that in for the recording. And this is the point where Terry starts calling in to the different locations, and makes a point of saying that over at the end of each sentence, because he's taught everyone in the previous series how to use a walkie-talkie.
I actually took the piss out of a colleague today for doing that. So she
Did
was doing
you?
the radio checks in the office and bringing through radioing through to security, and she said over, and it made me laugh. And I sort of was saying, "Oh, I'm expecting you to say Roger in a minute," and she
Roger
never did.
10-4.
Yeah.
So yeah, Terry's calling round, and Lance and Andy have got nothing to report. No one's come through Cobb's Lane direction. And then he's saying no activity on the site, over. And then Lance is like, we don't actually have an eyeball on the site, Terence, from where we are, over. So he says copy that, and then he calls into the other locations. So yeah, again speaking to is it Louise and Bard first that he speaks to, and then they're also saying they're not seeing a lot of anything, and they can't see anything. And Russell and Hugh, they're at Ashdown Road, and he's asking if anything's happening down there. He says negative, no suspicious activity. Do you have a good view of the crash site? Russell says no, not from here. So yeah, Terry, it's dawned on Terry that nobody's actually got eyeballs on the site. He's positioned them all in places where they can't actually see what's going on, which is hilarious.
Is that what it says in the script? Ashdown Road.
It says yes, Ashdown with an A. Ashdown.
Because on the, I don't know if it was subtitles or just watching the episode, but it said I had ESTAN, Estan.
Oh no, yeah.
Road. So I wonder if they changed the name or the subtitles were just incorrect.
Maybe, but definitely in the script it's Ashdown. So were you going to say anything?
Well, I looked up the Lindy Hop. Do you know what the Lindy Hop is? Well, I say I looked up. Ellie sort of mentioned it to me, and I then did a bit of research. But it's from 1927, where a guy, Charles Lindbergh, hopped the Atlantic, and it was the first solo transatlantic flight from New York to Paris.
Oh, wow.
And the longest solo one at the time as well. Not the first transatlantic flight, but the first solo one. And then become a dance in the African American communities in New York, and then become popular in the 30s and 40s in the sort of swing era.
Amazing. That's interesting. Thank you, Ross. Very interesting. Every day's a school day. Right. So yeah, Terry's obviously. Am I to understand that not one of you can see the actual site that we're supposed to be watching? Over. So Lance steps in at this point. Says seems to be the size of it, Terry. That's an affirmative, says Louise. Looks that way, Terry. Yes, says Russell. So Terry tries to keep calm and asks which one of them are the closest. And this is where Lance says, "Oh, it's probably us, Terry. Cobb's Lane. Do you want us to take a wander over?" Over. So it's double over. So yes, Terry confirms it's probably a good idea. So you then see Lance and Andy exiting the TR7, and Lance is in the bushes with his night vision goggles on. They take a look over the ridge, and hey presto, what do they see? But yes, they can see some people down there up to no good. And you can see through the night vision goggles, and you can see like 3 or 4 persons of interest, can't you?
Yeah.
So Lance gets on the radio again to Terry, coming Terry over, and he lets him know that they're too late. The Nighthawks are there. How did they get over there? Terry says. And Lance is like, don't know. No one came over past us. And they confirm they can see 4 persons, at least 3 of them, and then there's 1 person sort of standing way back to the side. So Terry says, don't worry, I'll get on the phone to the police. You sit tight. Don't let them know you're there. People can turn nasty about these things. And then, go on.
You know, Lance has got these night vision goggles.
Yeah.
Do you reckon? Because I don't know if it was mentioned in the first where he was talking about the stakeouts he's done previously, but I'm guessing that they were bought for those stakeouts.
Yeah, because why else would you have them?
Exactly. Why does it? Exactly. I mean, he's the kind
Oh,
of person to buy those kind of small gadgety things, but
yeah.
yes, I expect that would have helped in the previous ones.
Yeah, probably the ex-girlfriend, I reckon. He might have got them then. And we know he looks after his stuff, doesn't he? So he'd have just kept them nice and clean in a nice case somewhere
Yeah.
till he needed them for the next stakeout. Yeah, good point. So it cuts and Russell is asleep with Hugh, and the walkie-talkie slipped to the ground. Terry's voice is faint and crackly, so they both managed to fall asleep at the same time. Terry tells Lance and Andy he's going to drop Sheila home and then get straight over there, over and out. So then, yeah, you see Lance and Andy kind of do a bit of a side shuffle. They're getting out of their position. And you see the police come roaring in, don't they? Coming through, and they go down to the scene. And Paul and Art, this is really funny. So Simon and Garfunkel are there with head torches on, and when the police show up, they sort of try and make their escape.
Yeah.
But before that, they're not finding any signals, and that's what Art is protesting at. He's not finding anything. And then yeah, they go to make a run for it, and poor Art with his precious Arado, he calls it, doesn't he? His
Yeah. Well,
very old
128.
detector, yeah. He's legging it across the field and it gets blocked off by the police car, or one car, drops it, and then another police car comes in and takes out the Arado, runs over it.
Yeah. So fishing, which this is not, but when I go fishing, I used to go fishing. The poles you buy, they can be, I never had these valued ones, but they could be 10 grand for a pole because they're carbon fiber. They have diamond weaved through for strength. And
Wow.
if you stepped on one of them and it cracked, you can repair them, but they're really expensive sections to replace. Not 10 grand, obviously a 10 grand one, but if I even one that costs several hundred quid, there could be 60, 70 quid a section if you've break the wrong one. So I was
Yeah.
always really scared about stepping on or someone coming past and having it out behind on the tow part on a path along the canal
Yeah.
and someone riding over it or stepping on it. And it just gave me a fear every time I went fishing to
I
keep
bet.
careful. So you completely get the kind of agony of someone stepping on or running over the detector and breaking
Yeah.
that.
Your detector becomes your baby, and something that old as well. It's never going to be easy to get that repaired, is it? And like you
Absolutely.
say,
Yeah.
costly. So yes, the police are sort of you see you see another person getting tackled, don't you, by one of the ladies, and then Louise is like proper twisting his arm and making a citizen's arrest and telling him not to struggle, and he's like, I'm not struggling, I'm not struggling. So the girls have taken out Paul, aka Simon of Simon and Garfunkel.
Holy.
Yes, and then you see Russell and Hugh again. They're still nice and cozy and fast asleep, and you see a figure, a hoodie with a hoodie on, running past them and out into the night. So you suspect that's Peter because you've seen Simon and
Definitely Peter.
Garfunkel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Russell is doing a bit of dream speaking and just says margarine. Goes back to sleep. So yeah, back at the site, and the policeman is helping Art to his feet. And then he's protesting. Art is saying, I don't see what we've done wrong. And the police officer is saying, well, why are you running then? And he's saying, oh, I just didn't know who you were. Louise and Varda arrive with Paul with his arm behind his back. And then the police officer is saying, how many more? And Lance is telling him there were 4 in the field. And he's just questioning the guys and saying, what are your names? And then Lance is saying they were night hawking. It's very upsetting too. But then suddenly you see the other figure, and it's the mayor. The mayor. Mic
No,
drops, and the mayor was
not
there
about
with
him.
them. Mm.
I'm
So,
surprised he was around.
yeah, me too. I think he's got a sniff of the gold himself, hasn't he? So he wants a piece of the pie. So the police officer is asking who they've got permission from, and this is when the mayor speaks up, saying, from me. And they turn to see the mayor coming out of the darkness towards them. And the police officer questions who he is. Of course, he says, it's the mayor, this is my land. And then there's a bit of to and from about whether they actually have permission or not. And Terry swings into the field at this point. And he's coming shouting at the lads. So it's quite funny that Art is saying that they can be there, and Terry's saying, no, you can't actually, because I've got the license from the MOD, which says it's a protected place, so they can't be there, even though the mayor's given them permission. And that's where Art's saying, wrong. The Protection of the Military Remains Act 1986 states that this is a controlled site. So there's.
So what does that mean? Does controlled mean that it's okay so long as it's controlled? In terms of, the landowner's allowed to. Oh,
yeah.
No, I hadn't spotted
that. Yeah. So we need to do our research. But the police officer says, you know what? I should know the difference between a protected place and a controlled site, according to Protection of Military Remains Act 1986. But right now, I can't bring it to mind. So I'm going to have to look it up in a book at the police station. So, yeah. I guess you can't expect them to remember all of the different bits and pieces of all the different acts.
No.
So he suggests that they all go to the police station and he'll give some of them a lift. So
This was quite a good. I mean, for the mayor, for Ken, this has been quite lucrative. Or I don't mean financially, but he's in what, 4 episodes of this now.
Yeah, because you get the first one where he's lost his chain, the second one where he gets his chain back, and has to give them permission, and then we see him again briefly in another episode, doesn't he? Where he's like, "I know what you're up to," or something.
That's what I thought. I thought there was a third episode.
Yeah, so he's done well. Really has.
Mm.
And that's the end of that. So we presume they've all gone off to the police station, and then we see back at Becky and Andy's house. Andy letting himself in the front door, and he's trying to be quiet because it's obviously late at this point. He puts his bag down and goes through to the kitchen where there's a light on, and you see the back of Becky, who's obviously up, and she looks quite distressed when you see her front on. And Andy's asking, what are you up to? And then she very angrily says, I've got a 3-month-old baby. So it's like, duh, what do you think I'm doing?
Yeah.
And he says,
she speaks for herself then as well, not we've got, but I've got, which is again very pointed.
Good point. So she asked him how his stakeout was. So she obviously knew where he was, and he confirms they caught 3 bad guys and 1 got away. And she doesn't react to this. So Andy's kind of inquiring as to Stanley. Is he asleep? And she says, I've just got him down. And then she just says, did you hear about the job yet? So this is Andy's opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, he messes up here.
He should say, oh, yes, actually. But no, he just lies and says, not yet. So Becky says, well, that's funny. I had some good news today. And she confirms that she managed to get on the BSO, which is the scheme to go over to Africa. And Andy queries, okay, so what does that mean? And she says, well, it means me and Stanley are going to Botswana. So that's it, isn't it? She's made her decision. And then Andy's like, oh, what without me? And then, just like, Andy, come on, pull yourself together. So she gets up to go and she says, you can do what you like. I don't care. And he's calling after her. And then she loses it, doesn't she? And she's swear warning. She says, you're a fucking lying at Andy. I know you got the job because I saw the letter and you're too spineless to take it. So the cat is out of the bag. Andy once again has lied very badly. And Becky, of course, knows everything. So she's saying that her and Stanley will go on her own and he can stay here and play stakeouts with his metal detecting friends. So yeah, it's all crumbling, isn't it? Andy's almost begging her not to go and reminding her this was her plan. So this is the point where he starts actually speaking his truth and saying what you were saying earlier, Ross, that this was her plan in her mind. But
Exactly, yeah.
She says, that's why I fell in love with you.
Yeah, these kind of conversations, particularly this situation where he's been caught out for lying because he could have easily just said, oh yes, I hadn't had a chance to tell you that yet, for example. She wouldn't necessarily believe that, but at least he isn't saying no, I haven't heard, which is a blatant lie. But the truth is being, it's being squeezed out of him because it's now a defense mechanism. He can now only defend himself by saying, well, or defending by attacking, actually, by saying, well, you've made this plan, you've forged ahead with it, even though it's not something that I thought was a good idea, and you knew I didn't think it was a good idea. So it's attack to defend his position. A bit of smoke screening as well, I think. On his part.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that's the point where she said, I fell in love with you because you're a dreamer, but when it comes to the crunch, you don't want to act on those dreams. So, yeah, that's kind of where we see it and where it is left, unfortunately. And we leave Andy staring off into the distance.
I like because she finishes by saying if he doesn't act on his dreams, there's no risk of failure or disappointment. And then asks him what other things, and he says, she thought he was joking. He thought she was joking.
Oh, that's a bad thing to say.
It's clearly not. Clearly, she wouldn't have been joking about that. She went on about it a lot of times. It's clearly not a joke, and then obviously a very stormy off kind of comment chucked at him at the end. What other things did you think were a joke that we said we'd do? Which probably a little bit stinging, I think, at the end, and maybe hit home a little bit.
Yeah, you would feel very belittled, wouldn't you, if someone said that to you? I just thought your hopes and dreams were a joke.
Yeah, I can't recall the episode prior, but certainly this is a very negative ending. I know most episodes have that loop of that whatever happens at the start, kind of it goes back to the start at the end. It kind of goes full circle, and at the end of the episode, it has this, more car toys found, toy cars found, or whatever. There is obviously one episode where she gets that photo through the door, and she drives off to go to stay at her mum's, and he doesn't know what he's done wrong. But this one is probably one of the most negative endings, or cliffhangery as well. It makes you want to watch the next episode.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the last time when she stormed off with the photo, it's still kind of comical, wasn't it? Because he didn't know that she'd seen the photo, and he thought she was storming off because he was calling her fat or something because she wasn't drinking.
Something along that line.
It was that one. Yeah, but this one is very serious indeed. So, yeah.
And also, most episodes where you have that full circle thing, or it's still very lighthearted. They could be, and obviously there's a storyline throughout, but they could be standalone episodes with no necessary need to watch the next episode because it wraps up nicely with a soft ending. The hard ones do make you want to see what happens next because it's, as I say, a bit of a cliffhanger. Yeah. So I think it's nice how they've weaved these episodes in. A couple of normal ones and one that leaves you needing to see the next. That's quite clever.
Absolutely. You want to see the resolution. What happens next? So yes, that is the end of the episode. So much going on again. We know for sure Peter's a wrong un. We saw them night hawking at the site. It's gone very Pete Tongy again with Andy and Becky, and Kate hasn't yet returned, has she, for Lance? So yeah, lots to come back for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I look forward to the next episode, and I look forward to the next episode with yourself, Ross. I believe that's going to be into season 3.
Season 3, episode 1, I think. I get to start a series off.
Yeah, exactly. So I look forward to seeing you again soon, Ross. And yes, we've got some things to Google, haven't we? What else were we going to Google? The difference between the controlled, spats, and the difference between a controlled site and a protected site. Yes, I'll make sure I put that in the comments when we put the episode out. I do like our Google homework. It's a lot of fun. Good. All right then, Ross. Well, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Fantastic. Bye. See you soon.